that. So, Keion, I really want to make this thing personal, because me and Kaylee, I've been blessed to meet you, and you've been able to help me along my ways when it comes to my mindset, when it comes to my future life. And I've been watching a lot of your stuff when it comes to just the way that you live, man. And over the months, it's come up to a year now that we first met each other. I always kind of brag about you to some individuals, my mom, my dad. I know they'll be on the line as well here shortly. My nephew has a AAU game today, so they're going to be locked in on this call as well. But some of my leaders as well, they're on this line, and they always hear about your magnificent stories that you share with me. And we just had a session with you and your wife, amazing wife, with me and Kaylee, which I greatly appreciate. And I said, you know what? I want to have this mindset deal because, first of all, coming from Gary, Indiana, um, and I'll kind of let you kind of dive into that, and then to the place where you are today in life, you beat the odds. You were the person that really kind of took what you had and grew from that. Did you always, moving into the first question, did you always have the right mindset? Did you always have the right environment? Did you always have the right resources to get you to the place where you are today?
Yeah, so reverse engineering the question, did I always have the right environment? Absolutely not. Surrounded by drug dealers. I saw my first friend murdered at the age of 12. Um, to be quite honest and to be quite frank, I pulled my first gun on somebody when I was in the sixth grade. I was the only son of a single mother who worked at Taco Bell, made $6 an hour, raising four kids. There were six of us in a two-bedroom. I didn't get my first bed until I was 8 years old. I slept on the floor.
Mm.
First, as far as I can remember, my mother would fill the bathtub up once with water, and all of us had to take baths in the same water. And because I was the boy, I always had to go last. So my entire life, I always got in the bathtub after three people had been in it. Right.
Mm.
So those are my circumstances. My father was the pastor of the church that we attended, but I didn't even know he was my father. Okay. So I'm
Mm.
looking up there at him, wishing that I would have a father like him. And at the age of 12, I found out he was. So that made me go from loving a man and respecting him tremendously to not being able to stand the ground that he walked on because of his absence in my life. So circumstantially, I was a mess. But my mindset has always been there. And my mother used to tell us something, and she has a lot of one-liners. She would say, uh, that you should expect nothing and appreciate everything. She would say stuff like, have gratitude and be respectful. So because I didn't have circumstances, I had a mindset, and Darrin, I developed a mindset that I still employ to this day, through basketball. I was an athlete. I played Division I college basketball. So everything in my life contributed to the mindset that I have. And so, no, I did not have the circumstances. I did not have the mentors, but I always had the mindset. And let me tell you, when you have the mindset, everything you need finds you.
Mm.
People are not looking for people. People are looking for mindsets. So you're asking whether you pray to God or whether you subscribe to energy, whatever you do, know that for sure that thought attracts that upon which it is directed. And if you have the right mindset, you will see the things and the people that you desire finding you. The scripture says, goodness and mercy shall follow you all of the days of your life. When you have the right mindset, things find you. And when you have the wrong mindset, things run away from you. Take, for instance, money. If you don't have the right mindset about money, it's going to leave you. If you have the right mindset about money, it's going to find you. So I believe that 90% of what I do, 90% of what Meredith is going to do, 90% of what Carson is going to do, you're going to do that with your mind first. You're going to do it here first. You're going to think it, and then it will be. But it will not be so that you can believe it. You have to believe it, and then it will be.
So because your way of thinking is just, it's amazing. From me getting to know you, did you always have that type of mindset when it came to, I know you told me the circumstances, but I know Gary, and I know Tiers on the line and some individuals that's from Indiana, Jason and Chris. We know Gary, and you don't see that type of mindset, that type of deal. And I was watching you and Mr. Bugs interview earlier, about an hour ago, and you said that you moved into the neighborhood not because of the nice house, not because of the nice cars or where you're, but you heard from somebody saying that if you want what you want, then you got to be around the people that have what you want. But back then, when you didn't have the income for that or the resources for that, what were you doing to develop that mindset? Because there's some people on the line, there may be a few people on the line that probably don't have that type of environment to be around those individuals to develop that mindset. So what were you doing, Keion, for you to develop it at the time?
Yeah, so this is like, if you don't have it, you're absolutely exactly where I was when I started to get it, because whatever you don't have, you have to put yourself in a position to catch it from somebody else. So being in this room right now is a great first step to getting what you don't have. Now, I think about it like this. You have to renew your Netflix subscription. You have to renew your license. You have to renew your gym membership. I can't figure out why people think they can get through life without renewing their mind, right? We renew our vows after 10 years of marriage. We renew so many things, and yet we feel as if we're going to be able to cascade through life with the same mindset. You have to renew your mind the same way you renew everything else. But then you have to understand what distinguishes the brain from the mind, because if you don't understand that they're two different things, you'll be doing the wrong work on the wrong thing, right? So our mind, Darrin, it's our mental process, like it's our thoughts, it's our emotions, it's our feelings, right? That's what our mind is. Now our brain is really, it's an abstract, it's a concrete thing. It's what we're given. But everybody who has a brain doesn't use their mind, right? Everybody has a brain. You have to have a brain to be alive, but you need a mind in order to live. And so there is something called, and everybody write this down, there's something called Hebb's rule. And I read up on it some time ago. It's Hebbs, apostrophe S, because it's ownership. So Hebb's rule. And it describes how when a cell persistently activates another cell nearby, the connection between the two cells becomes stronger. So you say, how did I do it? I didn't know what to think, but I did have enough sense to know that I needed to get next to somebody who did know what to do. And here's one of my quotes. I never got this from anybody else. This is something that I believe is original to me. If you're following somebody who's going nowhere, you're going to get there 2 seconds after them. Right? So Hebb's rule says that if I don't have it, then I just connect to that which does. And inevitably, by connection, it activates something inside of me. Just so there is, you can study this. So if you go to London, cab drivers have to memorize complex streets, because if you go to London, they don't have freeways like we do. Everything is up a street. And so they develop in the back of their head a larger portion of the brain called the hippocampus. So that's the part of the brain where memory and recall is housed. Their experiences have literally changed the way brains grow in London.
Mm.
You'll find that a London brain is different than the Indianapolis brain in the hippocampus area simply because of what they have to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that I can change my brain by the atmosphere that I learn from. The atmosphere that I learn from can literally shape my brain, and it can cause me to grow in areas in my brain that somebody else's brain wouldn't grow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what's happening on this call right now. Everybody who's not here is not receiving this information, and you are. The question always is, once you get it, what will you do with it? And that separates the wheat from the tare, the good from the great, the bold from the fearful, the successful from the desirable. The house that I live in right now, I literally manifested it.
Mm.
I didn't buy it, I manifested it. I drove past it with my wife and said, I love that house. Somebody was living in it. It wasn't empty.
Mm.
But what in the church that we're in right now, the one that's on Rankin Road, it was occupied by Pastor Richard Rodriguez. He was in the church. He was having church. I went to the church 3 years before I bought it, and I asked him to rent the church to me. The man told me at the time that I could not afford to rent it from him, and he kicked me out. I have it on videotape on this phone right now. He told me to leave, and his exact words were, "You don't even have enough money to turn the air conditioner on." I walked out. I was not defeated because my mindset said, oh, so you won't rent it for? I showed up 36 months later and I bought it from him.
Mm. Mm.
All mindset. I knew it was mine when I was in it, even when he was paying the mortgage.
Mm.
So I bought it from him 3 years later. Not only did I buy it from him, but he was in foreclosure. So I spent $3 million less for it than what his asking price was, because not only did my mindset change him, it changed the environment. It changed the banking system. Guys, I promise you this. If you come to our church in Houston right now, I remember it is documented. I stood up one day and I told everybody, I said, God said that everybody in this place, get ready because student loans are going to start to disappear. This is documented. It is on tape. And I said, I'm asking God to give us $100 million in student loan debt eradication. That was on a Saturday. When we got up on Sunday and I said it publicly, 1 week later, Joe Biden announced that he was forgiving over $1 billion in student loans. And we played the tape back at our church because everybody was going crazy. They said, you said this a week ago. And then the president said it a week later. I said, I know, because I thought it. It was such a strong thought that he had to make a decision.
Mm.
Right now, we have $65 million worth of student loan debts that members of our church have brought to us on sheets of paper and said, I don't know what happened. I logged in my back office and my student loans were gone. My sister sent me her student loan forgiveness letter today.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I said would happen in October of 2023. So we got about 35 million more dollars that I believe is going to happen. So if there's anybody on here right now and you got student loan debt and it's tearing you up, I want you to believe with me, because by October of 2024, it's going to be gone. I'm just telling you, this is how I believe. And I say what I believe. And I believe what I say. And the universe cannot resist a mind that believes. I promise you it's the truth. Sorry, that's too long, Darrin. Go ahead. We're
No,
supposed to be
no, no,
done.
no. I love it. Now we heating up a little bit, but I want to say this, Keion, because some of these individuals, some of these people have done, amazing businesses in a very short period of time, and some of us have the same kind of similar story. Not maybe similar, but your story is just amazing. You wrote a book too, right? I need you to.
Yeah, I wrote a book. Yeah, it's up there. I wrote a book called The Shift.
The Shift. Okay, yeah, yeah. So I want to rewind back because you kind of skipped through some stuff a little bit, where you went from bathing in the same water and you did the last one to get in the bath to 60 million, 30 million, and you got a big environment and big network. Can you walk me through a little bit through the gaps of did you have a smaller church? Because a lot of these individuals have networks. Did you have a smaller church? Did you have how did you build yourself up from that? And because some people, you said 30 something months, some people would have forgot about the goal. And you kept the goal right there in front of you. Tell me the process of what you were doing while you were thinking and you wanting to manifest or you want to attract the things that you attracted.
So the church that I'm in right now, it's 20,000 members, but it started with five. It started with five. So you can't tell me that things can't start small because it started with five in a living room. The first offering that we had was $792. The first salary they ever gave me was $50 a week. I got a raise when I was making $250 a month. And the first car that I bought when I started making $250 a month was a Chrysler 300. which was ridiculously stupid because at that time that's how much the car note was. It was $354, so I was in debt. I had to spend $10 to buy firewood from a man who had a lumber yard across the street because I couldn't afford to turn the air and the heat on. So I would go buy, he would wrap the lumber, the wood in saran wrap, and it was $10 a bundle. And I bought it because it was cheaper to burn wood with a starter than it was to be able to turn the heat on. So I started there. But let me tell you something. Most people have that portion of their testimony at their fingertips, but they ignore it because they think the power is in the success. And I am telling you that your destination is not as important as your journey. What was I doing? First of all, I'm a music lover. And my favorite song in the entire world is A Change Gonna Come by Sam Cooke. That's not even a close second. I would put headphones on every night and I would listen to Sam Cooke say, I was born by the river, every day, over and 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 over again. So here's what the words are saying. I know a change is going to come. I know a change is going to come. I know a change is going to come. So that becomes what my subconscious believes. So what am I doing? The first thing when you're in that process, you gotta make sure that you are absolutely attentive to what you're listening to, because whatever you listen to leads you. Whoever you listen to leads you. You're not led by the person who has control. You're not led by the person who pays the bills. You're not led by the person who owns the company. You're led by the person you listen to. So who and what are you listening to? After you listen, what do you write? Scientists say that what we write with our hands actually causes us to remember more than what we hear with our ears. That's why if you subscribe to the Bible, it says, write the vision and make it plain. Anything you don't write, chances are you won't remember. So when I preach on Sunday, everybody says, why do you write your sermon? You never use the notes. I don't use the notes because I wrote it. Does that make sense? I get up there and they'd be like, how did you talk for an hour and didn't use any notes? Because I spent 12 hours writing. And when I spent the 12 hours writing, it freed me to go do the 1 hour of speaking. I have a book. I have a book on my shelf where I wrote everything in it at the time when I knew what I wanted. I would write, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to do that. Let me give you one amazing testimony about mindset. When I was 14 and I started preaching, I wrote in my Bible, or in my book, I want to be a trusted son of Bishop T.D. Jakes. Some of y'all may not know who he is. He's a huge preacher in Dallas. New York Times called him the Billy Graham of our day. So I wrote in my book, I want to be a trusted son of Bishop T.D. Jakes. I was in Dallas, Texas with one of the largest network marketers in the world. At that time, he was making $1 million a month in a coffee company. And he was doing a 7,000 person meeting. And he says, if you are in the presence of somebody who has what you want, then you shouldn't be talking when they're talking. You shouldn't be doing anything else but listening to them. Okay. So I'm listening to them. I'm listening to him. Now, what he doesn't know is that the week before I was in Orlando, Florida at a restaurant called J. Alexander, and I was in the restaurant and Bishop T.D. Jakes was sitting at a table. And I saw him and he saw me. And I get up to walk out. And all of a sudden, this man stands up and he tells his security guard, stop that young man. The young man comes and grabs me and says, the bishop wants to meet you. I come over, tears are in my eyes. He said, son, you've been praying and asking God to meet me. I said, yes, sir, all of my life. Since I was 14 years old, I said, I can show you a book in my backpack right now where I wrote it down. Now I'm 28 at this time. So this is 14 years later. So you asked what I was doing there. I was waiting, because the seed doesn't always grow in the season that you plant it. Sometimes you got to wait. And most of us don't get it because we figured that we ought to plant it in October. It should grow in April. Sometimes you plant it in 2005 and it grows in 2020. It's like bamboo. It's under the ground for 5 to 7 years before you even see a glimpse of what happens. And a bamboo stalk has to be watered consistently for 3 to 5 years, every day at the same time with the same amount of water. But if you do that consistently for 3 to 5 years, all of its growth happens in 90 days. So sometimes you have to continue to listen and continue to plant with no evidence that what you're doing is working. You can't work for evidence. You have to work for impact. I'm in that restaurant. Say it again.
I did the same thing, man. When you said, now you were very specific, but I wasn't really specific. When I wrote down, I told you and your wife, I said, I want people, I said, God, I want you to put me in front of people that can take me and I can take them to another level and build a nice relationship with. And here it is, I meet you at a place in Bahamas. And that's what we finally connected, and not knowing what was happening, but realizing our relationship. So I know exactly what you're talking about. But sorry for cutting you off. What were you about to say, Keion?
Yeah, so I'm sitting in a restaurant. He tells me to come over. He says, call me, but don't waste my time. Ooh. I couldn't believe it. He said, call me, but don't waste his time. And I'm like, yes, Bishop Jakes said, call him. Only to realize, bro, he didn't even give me his phone number. I didn't even realize that the man said, call me, and he didn't give me a way to call him. But where there is a will, there is a way. So what I did, he had a lawyer named Curtis Wallace who had just produced a movie called Sparkle. I tracked him down in Dallas, Texas. I said, Bishop T.D. Jakes told me at J. Alexander Restaurant in Orlando, Florida by the convention center to give him a call. I had on a jogging suit. At that time, it was Rockaware. Don't judge me. It was a long time ago. I said, I had on a Rockaware jogging suit. He had on a white suit with a red tie. Because if you don't see your future in color, you'll never see it in black and white. Like, you have to see everything in 4K. You need to remember, what was the wind doing when your life changed? What do you feel right now? What's the temperature in your house? Are you comfortable or are you uncomfortable? Because if you're uncomfortable, go change the temperature so you'll know what temperature you operate at. I can sleep at 68. I know my temperature. So you got to know everything in that technicolor world. But I'm trying to finish the story. So the man says to me, don't waste my time. I track Curtis down. Curtis gives me his number. Fast forward to Dallas. Bishop is calling me at the same time the network marketer is saying, if you have what I want, don't be on your phone. But my phone is ringing. And I think it might be something I need to, I get up, walk away, answer the phone, and this is what I hear, Darrin. Hello, this is Bishop T.D. Jakes from the Potter's House. I got your number from my lawyer. Watch what he says. He said, I just listened to 5 of your sermons on YouTube. He said, might I be candid? Now, I'm 20-something years old. He says, you are an Olympic swimmer, but you stay in shallow water.
Ooh.
Changed my life. Changed my life. What he was saying is I had the goods to win, but I didn't have the courage to get out of the baby pool. And what good is an Olympic swimmer in water you can't swim in? So if you're going to be what you're thinking about and manifesting, you're going to have to change the depth of the water you're in. You're going to have to change the depth to which the people you surround yourself with think. Some of you all hang out with baby pool people. They talk about nothing deep. They think about nothing deep. They have no deep aspirations. They don't want to do anything but get a handout or complain. And here you are, an Olympic swimmer, keeping company with people who sit in baby pools. And if you follow somebody who's going nowhere, you're going to get there a second after them. So what was I doing, Darrin, when I didn't have nothing? Surrounding myself with people who did. Learning the king's language, knowing how to talk about stocks and bonds, all of the language that they're talking about, diversified portfolios, and didn't have nobody's portfolio. But you have to learn the language of next before you get there. You don't want to get into next and still be talking about history. And most of us miss our history at the, I should say it this way, most of us miss our destiny at the expense of our history. And we're so accustomed to what we know, but there is something that's coming. And the signal that you're headed to the next place is you're uncomfortable and you don't know who to talk to about what you're experiencing. When you start going through like, oh, who do I share this with? Or who can I talk to that can help me with this? That's one of the first indicators that things are about to change, because now you have to look for new people to pour into or new people to pour into you. Let me say this one last thing. Bishop helped me to realize this. One day we were in New York and we were at Trump Tower and we were looking through the window. Man, you should see them, the apartments in that building, man. He was like, you know, that one up there, the guy was telling us, he said, that apartment belongs to this person and it's like $50 million. He said, that apartment right there, that one belongs to this person, is like $35 million. So we get on the elevator. I was like, I want to go to the top. Take me to the top. Got on the elevator, went to the top of the Trump Tower. Got on top of the building. And Bishop Jake said something to me that just blew my mind. He said, this is a young person's mistake. I said, what do you mean? He said, you couldn't wait to get to the top. And now you're up here. Tell me what you see. Air conditioning units, wires, dirt. He said, this is a young person's problem. You're always in such a hurry to get to the top, and you're going to get up there and find out that there is nothing up there. Life is won in the journey. Floor 1 was beautiful. Floor 2 was beautiful. Floor 3 was worth 50 million. Floor 4 was worth 100 million. Floor 25, 150 million. And yet all I could do is wait to get to the top to find out there was nothing up there, that life is enjoyed and it is lived in the journey. That's what you all have to realize, is that whether you have 5 members or 25,000 members, it's the journey. It's paying attention to the steps and not just staring at the bottom, not waiting until you can get to the top.
So Keion, were you ever, because you're a pastor, and I know you got a few more minutes, man. Obviously you're a pastor, and we often hear money is the root of all evil, right?
Yeah.
Did you set money goals, or did you set people goals, networking goals? What goals did you set? Because you're in a tough cookie, because if you talk about money too much, you know
Yeah.
the criticism, right? And we
Yeah.
have the same thing in business and etc. So what was it for you, man?
Well, first of all, I have enough confidence in myself to not worry about what people think. And I definitely don't listen to stupid people, because the Bible never said that the money is the root of all evil. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. So here is the deal. When somebody criticizes you with half the sentence, ignore them, because if they don't have all the facts, they can't help you. The scripture says, it's 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. The love of money is the root of all evil. You cannot love money and love God. That's what it says. But how can I help the poor if I'm one of them? So if he's called me to help the least, the last, and the lost, and I'm the least, the last, and the lost, then how am I going to help him? The difference between, say, me and somebody else is I got a lot of stuff, but I ain't in love with none of it.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't in love with none of it. I'm not in love with any of it. Everything is for sale. You can come to my house right now. If y'all want one of these cars and you got enough, you can have it. I am not in love with any of it. Okay. I got a cyber truck, man, and I've been driving. I drove it today. It is unbelievable how people acting about this truck. I mean, they giving me the middle finger. They asking, can they get inside of it? People are taking pictures of me everywhere I go. One lady from London smoking a cigarette tried to hop in my passenger side seat today at the car wash. I said, woman, if you don't get your butt out of my car, and I mean now. So as much as all of these people are going crazy, if any of y'all offer me the right amount of money, you can come get it right now, because I don't care about it. I don't care. So it's never become my God. So I am not in a difficult position. I'm actually in a privileged position trying to help people who are in difficult positions.
Mm.
I don't have issues like that, and I don't have that kind of complex. Now, as a pastor, if the only thing I did was preach and I had this lifestyle, that would be an issue. But anybody who knows me, like Darrin, I was an entrepreneur before I was a pastor. My degrees are in business. Okay. My wife is rich too. So you can't look at me. I'm an anomaly in that regard, right? I'm an anomaly in that regard. But I'm going back to mindset, because I still remember I was born in Gary. I wasn't born in Beverly Hills. I took baths in the same water 4 people later. The good Lord gives and he takes away. And I'm always reminded about where I started, because that's way more important than where I am. I am where I began, not where I ended up. That's what makes me powerful. Is because I still remember not being able to flush the toilet unless we had water in the bucket to flush it. I still remember not being able to turn the air conditioner on until my mama gave us permission. And some of y'all old enough to remember not being able to go in the refrigerator without permission.
Mm-hmm.
All of that made me. And every Sunday that I'm in the church, the seat right behind me, praise God for it. My mama sit there every week, and I'm always reminded. She said, "Don't get too big for your britches, boy. That means don't start showing off and all that kind of stuff." So I'm built by that. This is a luxury. This is an accoutrement, but it ain't me, because I was me before I moved in this house, and I'll be me after this house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I got two more questions. Is that okay for you, Keion?
Good, man.
Somebody in the chat just asked, what was your most challenging limited beliefs that you had to overcome on your way to what you built? Because a lot of these individuals know who you are already, and they follow you, and some of them attend your church as well, maybe through YouTube, and they want to know, what's your biggest limited beliefs that you had to overcome?
Two, rejection which stemmed from my father being the pastor of the church and not raising me as his son. So my limiting belief of rejection turns into imposter syndrome because it took me forever to believe that I belonged. Right. So you'll sometimes, I don't know if anybody else had this, but I would self-sabotage because I felt like I didn't deserve to be at a certain place. So I would figure out a way to bring myself back down to the level of the people that I was closest to so that they would feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because, they're going to start saying stuff like, well, you think you all that and so I didn't want to hear all of that because it would make me, tense up. So I would always back down and lower myself for other people's comfort.
Mm.
Then I realized you can't water yourself down because people can't handle you at 100 proof.
Mm. Mm.
You rob the world twice when you're not yourself.
Mm. That's good.
You rob them because you're not who you're supposed to be. And then you rob the world because the thing you're trying to be, you're not good at. So you rob the world twice by not being yourself.
Mm.
Imposter syndrome and rejection issues plagued me until I was about 35 years old.
Mm.
Now, what helped me kick the habit? How many of you all, by show of hands, sometimes still struggle with a volatile relationship with somebody in your family that always causes you to backtrack and backpedal? Okay. Whether it's a parent or a sibling, this is what I learned. I used to be so upset with my father when I was younger for the decisions he made. And it wasn't until I became the age that he was when he had me that I understood why he did what he did.
Mm.
Mindset. Before you get upset with anybody enough to allow your issue with them to cause you to backtrack, I need you to consider the set of circumstances and facts they had at their disposal when they had to make the decision. And then ask yourself, what decision would you have made if you were in the same set of circumstances? Now, I'm mad. My daddy ain't with me. My daddy don't raise me. My daddy don't do this. Now, let me give you the set of circumstances. When I was born, he was still married to his wife. Okay, you see what I'm saying? So he's still married. He's got children with the woman that he's married to. He's a pastor, and the only check he gets comes from this church. And to get up and say, oh, by the way, I got an illegitimate child over there, takes away his marriage, his income. You can say what you want. But what decision would you make if you were in the same position? And some of you all can say, oh, I would make the right one. Easy to say when you don't have to really live with the consequences. Mm-hmm. So the moment I realized that he had a set of circumstances that even I would have trouble dealing with, I understood why I didn't have a father until I was in my 20s. Mm-hmm. And guess what? That contributed to my mindset. So if I had to do it all over again, I would take his absence for the presence of mind, because had he been there, he would have taken care of everything I had to think about. Mm-hmm. So whatever's going on in your life, whatever you lack, whatever you don't have, all of those things are working together to produce the person that you're about to become.
So let me kind of reverse that a little bit, Keion, for off of a father figure to a leadership role where you're the student and you're listening to, let's say, TD Jakes. Is there anything that TD Jakes has told you to do you disagreed with, had a little argument with him, or whatever the case may be, and you just weren't aware of it? Or are you just a coachable, not chokeable student? Or did you have some disagreements with your leader?
Well, two things. My basketball coach just came to our church not too long ago, my high school coach, and he's put 9 players in the NBA. And I tried out for the Bulls and the Jazz in 2004. I tore my ACL. You know the story. Mm-hmm. But he said in front of my congregation, He said, I put 9 players in the NBA, but Keion is the best player I've ever coached. And the reason why he's the best player I've ever coached is because he's more trainable, coachable, and teachable than any player I've ever had. So innately, I have always been coachable, trainable, and teachable. Number one, because I had a black mama who used the belt for no reason at all. Is it Tuesday you want a whooping? That's how she was. But yes, Bishop Jackson, I have had one disagreement. And I'll tell you exactly what it was. He is the one who came with me to walk in that building when the guy told me to get out because I couldn't afford it. He was with me. Bishop flew down to Houston to walk that building with me. When I picked him up, now at that time, I owned a franchise of tax companies. I owned about 9 tax companies at that time. So I was doing pretty good. We were doing somewhere around 7,000 returns a year at an average of $899 a person. And I made all that money from January to April. So you do the math.
Mm-hmm.
I was driving a white 911, Porsche 911 4S Carrera with a red interior. I never will forget. Drive up, pick him up in the car from the St. Regis, and I drive him up to the church like, this the church we're trying to get. This the church we want. And he got in my car and he slammed my door. I'm like, "Ooh, you the bishop, but bro, you cannot be slamming my car door like that." He'll laugh at this story right now. So he slams my car door. I take him to the mall, take him to get out to eat, take him back to his hotel. He slams my car door again. At this time, I'm like, "Bishop, dog, what is wrong? Because you keep slamming my car door. Now I don't want no trouble. Not with the bishop. But why is you
I know what you
slamming
really
the door?"
said. I know what you really said.
Right. He says to me, he said, "I can't believe you don't have more sense than that." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You are trying to buy an $8 million building. You're asking people in your church to sacrifice to help you buy it, and you driving a $200,000 car? That's dumb." He said, "If they have to sacrifice, where is yours? Trainable, coachable, teachable." I said, "Yes, sir. He'll tell you this is the truth." I dropped him off at his hotel. I drove from his hotel to the Jeep dealership, traded my Porsche in for a Jeep Cherokee, and drove it until we bought the church.
Mm.
Now, if you don't have that kind of respect for your mentors, don't have one.
Mm.
If you don't trust their voice that strongly, where you will do something as a grown man or a grown woman that you don't have to do, don't bother. He said it, I listened, and I am standing here today, or sitting here today, with the blessings of the Lord on my life, all because I followed that one instruction.
Mm.
People trust me in our church because I followed that one instruction. And I didn't wait until it was convenient. It cost me $60,000 to get out of the car. I drove from his hotel to the dealership, wrote the $60,000 check, brought the Jeep Cherokee. And the people who saw me in the Porsche the day before saw me in the Jeep Cherokee the next day. And their respect went through the roof because they saw me sacrificing the same way I was asking them to.
Mm. Mm.
You have to live like no one else. So later on, you can live like no one else.
And that leads me to my last, you just answered it. Actually, my last question was with your big network that you built and you developed, you went from 5 to, I mean, the last time we talked, every time, I feel like every time we talk, your organization gets bigger and bigger and bigger in your church. What are 1 or 2 things that people, you just said trust, but what are 1 or 2 things that you would say that you need as a leader for everybody that's on this line that are leading a lot of people? Some of them are companies, some of them are organizations, some of them are people, some of them are their family and friends. What would you say 1 or 2 things that you must need for you to lead people, for them to want to follow you?
Yeah, I think you're going back to trust is absolutely Number one, there's a book that Stephen Covey wrote called The Speed of Trust. It's the best. It's probably in the top 5 books I've ever read in my life. The substratum of the speed of trust is when trust is high, cost is low. And whenever cost is low, it's because trust is high. And he tells the story about how many of y'all have ever had Dasani water? I think it's made by Pepsi. Okay. Don't drink it anymore, but I'm gonna tell you a story about it.
Yeah.
So they had a lawsuit because in their factory, somehow a spider was able to get into the process. And there was a man who went to the store, he bought a bottle of Dasani water, and it was a spider in the water. He never opened it. He saw it. And he was able to sue Coca-Cola and win a lawsuit because he said that he developed a disease called aquaphobia. He said now he's afraid of water. He said, I can't take a shower. I can't even drink it. I wish it was me, because had I known that something like that exists, I'm praying for a spider in my next bottle of water. Lord, just spiders in my water. I'm for it. So he sues Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has to spend millions of dollars redoing the portion of the factory where the spider was able to get in the water. Why? Because when he sued them, trust for the company went down. Well, then cost goes up. Now they got to do more marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So anytime trust falls, price goes up. So the only reason why it costs so much for you to be a leader is because the trust that people who follow you is low.
Mm-hmm.
So you start with the trust factor. It doesn't mean that you're always right. It means that even when you're wrong, I can trust that you tried to be right.
Mm-hmm.
So trust is number one. But here's something that I learned, number two, Darrin, that I think is extremely important for leaders. Many of you are on this call right now, and whether you're having a good time or not, you're receiving some information that the people you lead are not getting. Your husbands, your wives, your children, your groups, your employees, none of them are getting this information that you are getting right now. So what happens is when you get information like this, you go back and you start looking at everybody else like, what's wrong with y'all? Why are you not motivated? Why don't you get it? Yeah. Well, it's because they are not having the same experience that you're having. So as a leader, when you leave me today, your goal should be, how can I curate this same experience, either through me or through somebody else, for the people who follow me so that they can get on fire just like I am? Mm-hmm. But if you get off of this phone or this Zoom with this information, and the only thing you do is talk to and at and down at people who didn't get the information you got, you will get no further because they did not get what you're getting. So you should be creating your own talk out of what I'm talking about so that you can go and fire them up 5 hours after you get off of me. Hey, group, listen, exclusive call. Listen, I don't have time to explain what the content is, but I've just been set on fire. I know it's last minute. Whoever misses it, too bad, so sad. If it's only me and 3 people, that's what it's going to be. But I need you to meet me on the call at da 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 da. And then you just go right at them with everything that you just learned so that you can at least pull them up closer to where you are so that the distance between you and them isn't so big and you're not on fire and they're frustrated, because a man or a woman who says he's a leader and he looks back and sees no one, he's just taking a walk.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. You literally just I feel like every time I'm trying to get into the second thing, you've already talked about the second thing. The last thing, Keion, I was going to say was give them a plan of action, and you literally just did that, man. And give some fire emojis to Keion in the chat, you guys, please.